everyone. In today's video, we are going to be looking at Joshua meeting the captain of the Lord's host. Joshua and the captain of the Lord's host. And this is a continuation of the Bible story series. Let's get right into it. Let's go to Joshua chapter 5 and verse 13 through 15. And it says, "And it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him, with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us, or for our adversaries? And he said, Nay, but as captain of the Lord of hosts am I now come." And Joshua fell on his face to the earth, and did worship, and said unto him, What saith my Lord unto his servant? Now you got to realize here, this is not one of the angels. This is captain of the Lord of hosts. That would be Jesus Christ. And the captain of the Lord of hosts said unto Joshua, Loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so. So they go through and they have this conversation all about what is going to transpire and how they are going to defeat this great city, Jericho, which we can see in the last video. Now, one thing I had in my mind was the fact that Jericho was a city that was very, very large. They were scared of it, but with the Lord's help, they overtook it. Well, we're going to learn a little bit about that. First, let's go see some of the Bible story part of this. I noticed in my last video, it seemed as though people really liked me having the narrated story in the middle. So that's what we're going to do. In the biblical story of Joshua and the Battle of Jericho, the Israelites were led by Joshua. However, before the battle, Joshua encountered a figure as a man with a drawn sword in his hand near Jericho. Joshua approached the figure and asked if he was for or against them. The figure revealed himself as the commander of the army of the Lord and instructed Joshua to remove his sandals because the ground he was standing on was holy. The commander then gave Joshua specific instructions on how to conquer Jericho. He told Joshua that the Israelites were to march around the city once a day for 6 days, with 7 priests carrying trumpets of ram's horns ahead of the Ark of the Covenant. On the 7th day, they were to march around the city 7 times. And when they heard a long blast on the trumpets, all the people were to shout, and the walls of Jericho would collapse, allowing the Israelites to conquer the city. This encounter with an angelic commander before the Battle of Jericho is significant, and we see in this that it is not just an angel, but the captain of the Lord of hosts, or Jesus Christ, because no man would bow to an angel. There are places in the Bible where angels have appeared to men, and they specifically told them not to bow to them. So here we see that it was Christ that came to Joshua. We also see in this the importance of obedience and faith in carrying out God's instructions, even when they do not seem like they would work. Walking around a city and then shouting, and the walls fell down. Even when they may seem unconventional or challenging, God sticks to his promise, and he will fulfill what he has said he will do. So what we need to do is to take what he says to us as a promise and rely on that we may have eternal life. But now it's time to get back to the rest of our study. So I hope that story helps you to understand all of this more fully. Now, historical facts of Jericho. The city of Jericho had great strong walls, but how big was this city? I always thought it was huge, you know. Walking around the city 7 times, man, that must have been a project on that 7th day. No, it's actually about 10 acres, which means it's about a half-mile radius to walk around the city. So the day when they walked around once, that was half-mile. And you can see some photos here on the screen of the ruins of the city of Jericho and the size of it. This city was not very large, but yet it was very high. You look at the rubble piles nowadays, and the piles are mounded high. Well, if you have a large mound of rubble, there was gaps in between that from stories, so they had to collapse, so it was quite tall. So the city may not be as big around as you're thinking. So let's go to Joshua chapter 6 and verse 20. Joshua chapter 6 and verse 20, and we covered this in the last video, and it says, "So the people shouted when the priest blew with the trumpet. And it came to pass, when the people heard the sounds of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city." Joshua chapter 6 and verse 21, it says, "And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, and young and old, ox and sheep and ass, with the edge of the sword." And verse 24 says, "And they burnt the city with fire, and all that was therein, only the silver and the gold, and the vessels of brass and of iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord." So we've seen here, Captain of the Lord of Hosts shared this plot with Joshua. And Joshua trusted in the Lord and worshiped him. And because of that, they defeated a city that was feared with the help of the Lord. I pray this video has been a help for you. Please like, share, and subscribe, and walk with God.